You really breathe life into this place, you know that? What? Misfit life jackets and all? Felicity grinned but looked away, suddenly self-conscious under his gaze. Yes, even chaos has a way of finding beauty. In that moment, the silence between them thickened again, rich with vulnerability. Felicity wanted to ask him about his past, the heart of the shadows lurking behind his smile, to unravel the knots of who he truly was. Instead, she swallowed the question, fear holding it fast. But what about you, Kale? Marcus interjected, sensing the tension hanging in the air. What can we do to make sure you stay on this side of whatever you've been wrestling with? Kale's smile faded, and he turned back to the murky waters, shadows deepening in his expression. That's the thing, little dude. I'm not sure I can ever fully escape. Felicity felt the words wrap around her heart like a tightening vine. Maybe that's okay. Marcus shrugged, his playful demeanor intact as he thumped Kale on the back. We'll figure it out, right? Right, Kale replied, but the weight behind it seemed dense, opaque like the swamp waters. As the laughter faded, Felicity reached out, her fingers brushing against his elbow for just a moment before pulling back. Could they both let go of the past and find a future, intertwined like the gnarled roots beneath the swamp? Let's make our own chaos, then. She smiled, light sparking in her eyes, but inside, her heart thrummed with the burgeoning connection, a promise of what could be amidst the mire. Scene 42. Crafting futures together. The languid haze of the swamp settled around them like a soft embrace as Jolene leaned against the weathered railing of the old airboat. The air buzzed with the distant hum of cicadas and the earthy scent of damp moss. A tea-colored river wound through the tall cypress trees, whispering secrets of the murky depths. Jolene's fingers drummed lightly on the wood, her mind racing ahead. The sunlight dappled through the leaves, catching strands of her dark hair and throwing playful shadows across her face. Kale Omari, ever the enigma, stood beside her with his arms folded, his features stern yet inviting. He was quiet, the tension palpable, mirroring the gentle ripples on the water. A restless energy crackled between them, both electric and tender. Okay, Jolene began, snapping him out of his reverie. Her voice was bright, eager, like sunshine breaking through a morning mist. What if we revamped the tour? Add a night cruise with lanterns? We could serve local snacks, gator bites, and swamp lemonade. Keel's eyebrows shot up in surprise, a mischievous smile creeping onto his lips. Swamp lemonade? Are you trying to scare away customers? She playfully swatted at him. You're supposed to support my creative spirit. Imagine it, a chorus of frogs harmonizing with our customers' laughter. He chuckled, leaning closer, their shoulders brushing. Fine, fine. But what if we showcase the wildlife better? Introduce them to Mr. Snappy? He gestured towards the lake, his expression suddenly serious, transforming as if the weight of the swamp lay upon him. Jolene caught his gaze, her smile fading slightly. Mr. Snappy? The alligator that lives in the old swamp, he replied, a hint of mischief in his eyes. He has social skills, or maybe just a taste for tourists. Jolene rolled her eyes, half amused, half concerned. Not exactly what I had in mind for a family-friendly tour, Kale. All right, no Mr. Snappy. He ran a hand through his tousled hair, the sunlight glinting off his deep brown skin, revealing the flecks of gold in his eyes. You know, whatever we do, it's all about making memories. As they exchanged ideas, the tension between them, once charged with uncertainty, began to shift into something warmer. She caught him glancing at her, his expression more open, more inviting this time. They were like two dancers on the edge of a grand reveal. What if we also set up a little evening music session? Jolene mused, braiding her fingers together, willing herself to remain composed. Local musicians to serenade the tourists while they sip on swamp lemonade. He smiled, genuine and wide. Now you're onto something. You think that would work? Playing music where the alligators can hear? Not sure they appreciate talent. Jolene leaned over the railing, pretending not to notice his delighted yet probing eyes. But it's worth a shot, right? Just then, a splash echoed nearby. Both turned sharply to see Marlene, one of the local kids, tripping after a runaway boat paddle, arms flailing. She let out a delightful shriek as she splashed into the water. Watch it, kid! Kale shouted, laughing, shaking his head. You're not my father, Marlene retorted, pulling herself up, dripping with determination. She flicked water at Kale, narrowing her eyes playfully. This is a swamp. It's supposed to be wet, Jolene chuckled, the warmth of their laughter mingling with the sounds of the swamp. See, this is the vibe we need. Fun, unexpected, a little chaotic, maybe even messy, Kale added, eyes gleaming with mischief. Just like us. Their gazes locked, an unspoken understanding hanging in the air. The moment felt suspended in time, charged with possibility. You think we can really pull this off? Jolene whispered, the sudden gravity of her question pulling her closer to him. Kale edged closer, his voice low, laced with conviction. If we work together, I have no doubt we can. The sweat on his brow glistened with the promise of shared effort, and an echo of something more profound danced in the space between them. Jolene held her breath, looking into his eyes, searching for the truth hidden beneath the surface. Then Marlene shouted from the water, her voice cutting into the charged air. Hey, you two lovebirds want to help me or what? Jolene and Kale burst into laughter, the walls around them breaking as playful banter returned to the atmosphere, both excitement and tension mixing cleverly like oil and water, tantalizingly close but never quite blending. All right, Kale called, shaking off the moment and glancing back to Jolene, the spark still igniting the air between them. We'll help, but no more paddles flying into the swamp, all right? Heck no, I'll outrun any gator, Marlene shouted back, splashing joyfully as Jolene released a deep breath, the weight of the moment lifted. Together, amidst laughter and chaos, they began crafting futures, and maybe something deeper, while a sun-drenched swamp held its secrets close. Scene 43, a trip down memory lane. In the dim light of the airboat depot, Felicity Duval stood before a weathered map of the swamp, fingers hovering over the crisscrossing lines that traced the blood of her family's legacy. The edges were frayed, like her confidence in the face of Ricky's impending sabotage. Each landmark etched on the map whispered stories, a cherished childhood, laughter tumbling through the lush cypress trees, the thrill of adventure that once filled their airboat tours. Behind her, the gentle creaking of the wooden planks beneath the weight of memory filled the silence. A fly buzzed lazily, breaking the stillness, but Felicity stayed lost in the echoes of her past. Her mother, vibrant and determined, would often trace the lines on that very map, instilling dreams not only in Felicity, but in the eager children who climbed aboard for the adventure beneath the canopies of moss. Just then, the portal to those memories swung open as Kale Omari entered the depot, his presence like a sudden gust of wind, invigorating yet charged with unseen burdens. He studied the map too, a shadow of recognition brushing across his features. Looks like you're planning an expedition, he said, a flicker of mischief in his eyes. Felicity shrugged, but the trace of a smile broke through her seriousness. Just trying to remember where it all began, she replied, her voice softer than she intended. Not many people care about the stories anymore. Kale leaned against the wall, studying her. Ricky might care about winning. The mention of Ricky sent a ripple of tension through her. And that's the problem, isn't it? She turned away from the map, the humor giving way to a weighty exhale. I can't let him steal the heart of this place. Not again. As Kale's eyes lingered on her, they shimmered with unspoken understanding. You've got fire in you, Felicity. Don't let anyone douse it. She inclined her head, gratitude and apprehension clashing in her heart. Their connection, potent yet delicate, hummed in the space between them. In that charged silence, the air felt thick, almost vibrant, a shared remembrance of those simpler, golden days. In a heartbeat, they were pulled into another memory. The quaint porch of her childhood home wrapped itself around them, her young self giggling as she tripped over her mother's feet while they danced to the faint sound of an old record player. Your mom really knew how to throw a good party, Kale said, his voice reverberating softly through the air. Yeah, she murmured, crossing her arms as she faced him again. She made everything feel magical. Kale reached out, an unexpected softness in his gaze. What if you could reclaim a piece of that magic? Felicity's heart quickened. By taking back the airboat tours. She laughed lightly, her voice breaking a certain tension. I can't sprinkle pixie dust on it and change the outcome. That's not what I mean. His tone shifted, more serious. I mean, you can't just wait for someone else like Ricky to rewrite your history. His words struck a chord deep within her. The The silence that followed buzzed not with awkwardness, but with promise, weaving a thread of potential that connected their dreams and fears. Outside, a frog croaked, its vibrato echoing through the evening air, a reminder of life continuing unabated despite their turmoil. "We could make it happen together," Cale suggested, stepping closer, his presence a steady anchor amidst the whirlwind of possibilities. "Show everyone that the swamp isn't just about what has been lost, but what can still be found." Felicity's breath caught, the gravity of his offer settling in. She looked up, their eyes locking. The moment stretched like taut fishing line, each heartbeat reverberating in the still air. A commotion broke through their shared gaze as the rest of the crew staggered in, Eddie and Sienna bickering about the last missing oar. "Do you really think I was going to throw a paddle overboard, Sienna?" Eddie blustered, gesturing wildly. "Oh, please. Last time I checked, you were steering us into the sticky mire," she shot back, laughter bubbling between them. Felicity and Cale shared a quick grin, the momentary tension easing into something light. The crew's laughter filled the air, weaving a tapestry of camaraderie that settled around them like a warm embrace. As Felicity brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear, Cale leaned in slightly, his whispered words meant only for her. "You're not alone, Felicity. Remember that." And just like that, the evening sun dipped lower, bathing the depot in a golden warmth. Felicity's smile lingered, buoyed by the laughter of her friends, the vitality of the swamp, and the possibility of a rekindled dream. Scene 44. Unexpected alliances. The swamp settled into its familiar rhythm, an orchestra of croaking frogs and rustling reeds, creating a natural symphony under the waning light. Mist hung low, wrapping around the cypress trees like a delicate shroud. Cale Omari stood at the edge of the dock, his fingers brushing the rough-weathered wood while he fixed his gaze upon the muddy water, dark and contemplative. Silhouettes of herons shuffled about, like sentinels keeping watch over the secrets buried beneath the murky depths. Felicity Duval, her deep brown skin aglow in the twilight, approached, her expression a mixture of determination and whimsical mischief. "If we survive another day without getting our airboat stuck again, I might just throw a parade," she quipped, a teasing lilt in her voice. "Celebrate mediocrity? You and I have different standards for success." Cale raised an eyebrow, suppressing a smirk. "Come now, it's only a minor setback that left you in the mud," she shot back playfully, her tone layered with underlying sympathy. As they exchanged banter, a sudden ruckus broke through the tranquility. A squawking voice pierced the air, the unmistakable sounds of Marv and Eunice arguing like two mismatched puppets. "No way, Marv." Eunice's hands flailed as she huffed, her auburn curls bouncing with the fervor of her indignation. "The last time you said those were magic rocks, we were raking the swamp for days." "I'm telling you, they're rare moss rocks," Marv insisted with characteristic stubbornness, his wiry frame bouncing on the toes of his worn-out boots. "And they absolutely have power. Just look." He held out an unremarkable stone, glistening with dew. "Magic rocks? Really? You must have hit your head too hard last time we narrowly avoided that gator." Eunice crossed her arms, a blend of exasperation and fondness in her eyes. Felicity turned to Cale, gesturing toward the squabbling friends. "Somehow they think they're united against the swamp gators. They ought to fear getting sucked into the mud pit of their own arguments first." Cale chuckled, the tension lifting slightly. "I suppose every circus needs its clowns." In that light-hearted moment, a sudden realization struck Jolene's predicament had rallied them all, binding each with an unspoken allegiance. It wouldn't be long before they would face the swamp itself, and everyone present had a role to play. "Let's rally them," Cale said, his tone shifting to one of resolve. "Jolene needs her people." Eunice, overhearing, paused mid-argument. "Who's going to rally us? Marv thinks moss rocks will save the world. More like save his ego." Felicity added, drawing laughter from a silent group that had gathered nearby. Lyle, leaning against the dock with an easy grin. Tanya, her dark curls framing a look of agreement. "Don't underestimate the power of stupidity," Lyle chimed in with an exaggerated seriousness. "I think we can make a living off it." "I'll take the paycheck," Tanya laughed. The group erupted in light-hearted banter, filling the air with warm laughter, even as the shadows of doubt lingered. Cale, savoring the moment of camaraderie while still burdened by his own hidden chains, shared a glance with Felicity. Her bright eyes reflected a flicker of understanding, a connection forged deeper than mere words. Gather the forces, Kale said, stepping forward with a new sense of purpose and humor interwoven. The swamp is going to see what real magic looks like. What's that? A parade? Marv asked, his voice chirpy, a hint of mischief glimmering in his eyes. Or a grand failure. Either way, I'm in, Eunice replied, crossing her arms defiantly, her stance declaring her readiness for whatever lay ahead. Let's just try not to get swamp muck in our hair, Felicity added, shooting Kale a playful glance, causing his heart to leap momentarily. As they gathered near the water's edge, excitement and laughter mingled freely in the humid air. Kale took a deep breath, a blend of hope and trepidation settling in his chest. The uncharted waters of his soul felt closer than ever. At that moment, he realized that the fight wasn't just about the swamp or its monsters. It was about unleashing their collective bravado and supporting Jolene when she needed them most. Together, then? Kale asked, addressing the team. Together, they echoed, voices uniting as the sun sank lower, the atmosphere thickening with unresolved dreams and shared laughter. In that chaos of alliances, hope flickered to life, each person rekindling bonds that had been strained, initially bound by circumstance. They now chose to stand firm together against the coming tide. Scene 45. Under adverse conditions. The sudden crack of thunder echoed across the murky expanse of the swamp, a cacophony that jolted Felicity Duval from her contemplative reverie. The air thickened with humidity, cloying and electric as she shielded her eyes from the sun, now a sullen orb obscured by gathering storm clouds. Kale Omari, standing at the helm of the airboat, squinted up at the heavens. Didn't we just fix the leaks in this thing? His voice was light, teasing, a sharp contrast to the dark rumble of the approaching tempest. Felicity shot him an incredulous glance. We're going to need a life raft, not just a couple of repairs. There was a spark of mischief in her, one she could hardly suppress even as dread fluttered in her stomach. The swamp mirrored her internal turbulence, with frogs blinking indifferently at the shift in weather. As she moved closer, Kale tilted his head, a flicker of concern crossing his handsome features. What if this storm hits before we can get back? His words hung heavy in the thickening air, mingling with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. We're not going to drown in the middle of the swamp, Felicity reassured, though the thread of uncertainty in her voice betrayed her. The swamp was a living entity, one that could shift and change with just a whisper of wind. The first raindrops pelted the wooden deck, startling a nearby heron that took flight, wings fanning out in panic. Kale instinctively reached for Felicity, drawing her close. The warmth of his presence enveloped her like a soft blanket. Moments like these were rare in their endeavor, half romantic and half fraught with tension. He leaned in, the storm swirling around them as he murmured, "What's the plan? We can't outrun nature, but maybe we can dance with it." Felicity grinned, her resolve blooming even in uncertainty. "If you can lead, I'll follow." She threw her arms out wide, inviting a laugh, even as the drops turned into a steady downpour. Laughter erupted like fireworks, cutting through the straining tension, each giggle underscored by slaps of rain against skin and wood. As they swayed together awkwardly, the storm seemed to encourage their banter. Felicity took a step back, throwing her arms wide again. "Just don't step on my toes, especially not when they're wet." Kale feigned a deep frown. "You underestimate my ability to twirl." Their laughter danced on the mingling scents of wet earth and decomposing leaves, the sound filling the hollow spaces of the airboat. Just then, a loud crash sounded behind them, where Willow, the boat mechanic and Felicity's ever-frazzled friend, wrestled with a rogue gust that threatened to lift the tarp. "Can you all keep it together long enough not to drown while I save our gear?" "Save yourself first, Will," Felicity shouted back, her teasing tone jarring against the growing chaos. The tension in Kale's expression intensified as he turned to her, his voice dropping an octave. "You know there's more at stake than just the airboat, right?" Felicity's expression switched momentarily, growing serious. "You think I don't know about the pact you made?" She hesitated, the air heavy with unsaid thoughts. "Trying to escape your fate doesn't always work out. What would you have me do? Embrace it like an old friend? It's not mine to own. Kale's eyes glinted, reflecting the quick flashes of lightning. Then what is it? She volleyed back. Some embodiments of fate are meant to be challenged, just like us. A moment of stillness enveloped them, the world distilled into the tension of a shared breath. The storm raged on, flaunting its power as if daring them to confront their fears together. Suddenly, while the rain lashed even harder, Felicity stepped nearer, heart racing, the storm's uncertainty mingling with her own. "What if we don't face it alone?" she whispered, a vulnerability dancing through her voice. Kale's stormy eyes softened, the flicker of vulnerability mirrored in hers, both aware of the churning emotions just beneath the surface. "Then perhaps we'll dance the night away through storm and mire," he said, something deeper bleeding into his tone. The corners of her mouth lifted in a half smile, the storm echoing their turmoil yet somehow bringing them closer. Then it settled. "If we're going down, let's make it a party." As thunder rumbled again overhead, Felicity dared a step closer, their world igniting amidst dark skies. Scene 46, Reflections of the Heart. The sun dipped below the cypress trees, painting the swamp with hues of amber and violet. The soft croaking of frogs mingled with the distant crackle of fireflies, illuminating Jolene's airboat enclave like a stage set for some whimsical play. The muddy scent of wet earth mingled with the sweetness of blooming jasmine, wrapping around her like a familiar embrace. Jolene leaned against the weathered railing, her fingers tracing the grooves of the wood that had weathered countless storms, much like her own heart. "Another busy day, huh?" A voice filled with charm interrupted her solitude. It was Tasha, her quirky best friend, twirling a handful of wildflowers in her hands. "Yeah, busy," Jolene replied, watching as a dragonfly flitted by, a flash of iridescence against the twilight. But it wasn't all bad. The tourists seemed to enjoy themselves, for a change. "Right? Even that couple from Wisconsin who almost tipped the boat." Tasha chuckled, her laughter breaking the waning silence. "I swear, it's like they never seen gators before." She paused, noticing the shadow behind Jolene's smile. "But you, girl, you looked deep in thought." Jolene sighed, a mix of amusement and exasperation dancing on her features. "Just trying to figure some things out. Love stuff." Tasha leaned closer, her expression morphing into that of an eager conspirator. "Ooh, spill it. Is it about Kale?" "Belial," Jolene corrected, the name feeling strange yet exhilarating on her tongue. "It's complicated. I want to believe in him, in what we have." But before she could finish, Tasha poked her side playfully, breaking the tension. "But what? You're not afraid he'll turn you into swamp muck, are you?" "No. Well, maybe. Not literally." Jolene threw her hands in the air, a mixture of laughter and frustration spilling out. "I'm just scared. It's like every time I think I understand him, another layer peels back, revealing something darker." "Girl, romance is messy." Tasha smiled softly. "You're not alone in this." Jolene's heart warmed at her friend's support, even as her mind swelled with questions. She gazed at the reeds, swaying gently, knowing that the truth of her feelings lay somewhere within their rhythmic dance. Just then, laughter erupted from the clearing, a group of local kids chasing each other around the scattered picnic tables, carefree and oblivious. "See?" Tasha chirped. "Love isn't just heartaches. Look at them. Remember when we used to play by the swamp until sunset?" "Yeah," Jolene smiled wistfully. "Life was simple back then." Her gaze flickered back to Tasha. "But it feels different now. I'm not the same girl just dreaming about love. I have a business to run, a family legacy to uphold." "You also have a heart that was meant to be cherished," Tasha replied, her voice low yet steady. "You deserve joy, Jolene, not just work." "But will he choose me when he's fighting his own demons?" Jolene murmured, peering into the dusk. The weight of Belial's past bore down on her heart, tightening her chest. Just as she spoke the name, the air shifted. A shadow fell across her, the figure tall and commanding. It was Belial himself, his eyes glimmering like dark stones under the deepening sky. "I heard my name," he said, a teasing lilt in his tone. "What dark secrets are you two plotting?" "Just the usual, trying to decipher your complicated psyche," Tasha quipped, stepping aside to let him through. Belial's eyes turned serious, a flicker of something vulnerable passing between them. "Jolene," he began, but she interrupted him, the urgency surging within her. "Do you still feel that pull, like you're tied to something?" She searched his face, seeking some hidden truth. I can't help but wonder if what we have can survive once the past returns. He stepped closer, leaning on the railing, the distance shrinking as the swamp's nocturnal symphony surrounded them. You think I'd let my past define my future with you? Silence hung between them, thick and electric, filled with unspoken fears and unmet desires. Jolene felt her breath catch in her throat. The world around faded, leaving only the pulse of their connection in the dim light. Then, with a soft intensity, he whispered, "Every moment with you tells me otherwise." Jolene's heart swelled, the weight of uncertainty mingling with the warmth of possibility. "Then let's embrace the chaos together," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, feeling the tether of their souls drawing closer. The dance of fireflies continued, their flickering light illuminating the murky depths, echoing the strange, beautiful path ahead. Scene 47, the heart of the swamp. The morning sun stretched across the murky waters, golden specks scattering like laughter among the reeds. Cale Omari leaned against the weathered dock, feeling the wood's familiar grooves beneath his fingers. Today was the community's annual swamp frolic, yet amidst the joyous atmosphere, he wrestled with a burgeoning restlessness, a sense of impending tension that shadowed the revelry. He glanced at Felicity Duval, her presence a vibrant burst of energy. She animatedly gestured as she decorated her airboat, festooned with brightly colored banners and streamers that whipped in the light, hinting at her chaotic creativity. Keel admired the way she laughed with the children, effortlessly bridging the gap between practicality and whimsy. Jolene's laughter rang like a melody, aiding her efforts to revitalize the spirit of the swamp. "Cale, stop brooding. This isn't the time for your dark, thundery thoughts," Felicity called playfully, swiping him with a handful of glitter. "We have a festival to run, not a funeral." A reluctant smile crept onto his face despite the weight on his heart. "I'm not brooding, just contemplating the swamp's fate," he replied, trying to mask the truth. The pact he bore felt heavier as the sun climbed higher, and he needed a distraction. "Contemplation? More like brooding with a side of melancholic charm," Felicity teased, her eyes dancing. "Come on, help me with this craft station. I need more hands." Meanwhile, across the festival grounds, an uproar broke out near the pie-eating contest. Eric, the local prankster, with his unkempt curls and bright plaid shorts, had just tossed a pie towards his rival, Ava. In her typically resilient manner, Ava caught it midair and retaliated, pie filling splattering into laughter and chaos as nearby friends erupted into shrieks. "Watch out, it's a pie catastrophe," Ava shouted, wiping a smear of cream off her cheek, her eyes glimmering mischievously. Cale chuckled and felt his own worries momentarily fade. Nearby, some teenagers, Nat and Dylan, took aim to launch water balloons at targets they had crafted from cardboard cutouts of swamp monsters. "Come on, we can hit the Swamp King," Nat yelled, letting fly with a scream of victory as their water balloon struck its mark. Laughter erupted closer to Jolene, whose attempt to remain cool under familial pressure drew warmth in everyone's heart. As the afternoon wore on, laughter and shouts filled the air, mingling with the sounds of banjos and food sizzling over open flames. The festival felt alive, a heartbeat resonating within the swamp, drawing everyone closer with a promise of connection. "Is it wrong I enjoy the smell of fried everything? Even if it's probably not good for my arteries?" Keel nudged Felicity, watching her as she held a stuffed mushroom, contemplating it as if it were an artifact of fine culinary art. "That's what the swamp is all about. Life is too short for bland health food," she declared with a mischievous grin, popping the mushroom into her mouth. "Besides, these are eco-friendly, sustainable swamp fungi." Kale's heart warmed at her fervor. Just then, a splash echoed through the air, and they turned to see Nat gleefully dousing Dylan with a bucket of murky water, unleashing a cascade of laughter. "Total swamp warfare," Dylan sputtered, shaking droplets from his hair as the crowd erupted into cheers. "What about that idea of swamp insurance?" Felicity quipped, her tone half sarcastic. "I bet we could start a swimming school just for tourists to extract the water they swim through. Count me in as your first student if it means I avoid swamp monsters." Cale laughed, the warmth of camaraderie dissolving the weight he carried. But as they shared more laughs, a flicker of doubt crept back into his thoughts. How could he maintain this lightness, this connection, when he was chained by shadows of his past. Every joyful moment reminded him of what he'd sacrificed. The festival grew louder, and his gaze drifted to Felicity, her animated spirit eclipsing his gloom. With a momentary wave of courage, he approached her. "Hey, Felicity, what if we made a pact of our own, one that didn't involve shadows or chains?" Her laughter faded into something softer. "You mean a fun pact, like a friendship or another piñata?" Her teasing eyes held genuine interest, coaxing him to unveil his heart. "No, more like," he stumbled, trying to straighten the tangled threads of his thoughts. "One that's about celebrating, not just surviving." As the world loudly danced around them, he caught her gaze, feeling everything shift. The world swayed, possibilities twinkling like the sun on the water. "That sounds like a wonderful start," Felicity said, her voice barely audible through the clamor, yet suffused with an undeniable realization. And just like that, under the laughter, the splashes, and the warmth of newfound courage, the swamp held their stories as it always had, fragile, full of potential, and beautifully alive. Scene 48. Preparing for battle. The oppressive humidity felt like a thick blanket draping over the swamp as dusk began to creep in. Cale Omari leaned against a gnarled cypress tree, staring into the murky waters that reflected the fiery hues of the fading sun. The festival lights flickered to life in the distance, casting playful shadows across the landscape. He raked a hand through his tousled dark hair, an agonizing clash of desperation and determination swirling within him. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and fried food, directly counterbalancing the chaos brewing in his heart. "Cale, get your head in the game," Ricky Larson called, strides purposeful as he approached, his wild curls damp and tousled. "The festival's a front. Our real agenda lies beneath the surface. I've got a plan." "Another plan?" Cale countered, a sharp edge to his voice. "You remember the last one? It nearly got me banished from this swamp." Ricky waggled his eyebrows, an impish grin spreading across his face. "But it didn't, did it? The festival's our best cover to shake things up. Besides, Felicity's distracted with her airboats. She's the last one suspecting you to be the source of the ruckus." "Is that really what you think? That I'm some sort of villain?" Cale's eyes narrowed, reflecting a volatile mix of hurt and resentment. "You know why I can't, why I won't." "Stop thinking so much," Ricky interjected, throwing his hands in the air theatrically. "Dive into chaos. It's where you truly belong." Meanwhile, across the riverbank, Felicity Duval crammed her non-operational airboat with supplies, her eyes darting nervously toward the festival, where people laughed and danced around glowing lanterns. She felt the weight of anxiety settle in her chest, knowing deep down that this event could bring the revitalization her business desperately needed or its demise. "Felicity," yelled Charlene, her sister, peeking from behind a stack of life vests. "Where's the music? I thought there was supposed to be some music." Felicity sighed, extracting a neon pink flotation device, only to be interrupted by the booming voice of her overbearing father. "Let the girl work, Charlene. We don't have time for dancing when our very future is at stake." "Thanks for the faith, Dad," Felicity mumbled under her breath, already feeling the noose of expectation tighten around her neck. She plastered on a smile. "I'm just, getting the boat ready. You know how it is." Felicity's facade of cheer crumbled when she caught applause from the festival goers near the entrance. As she tossed supplies into the boat, she felt torn between duty and a yearning to join the carefree souls celebrating life, and maybe to find Cale and clear the air between them. Back in the swamp, the colors of dusk deepened, the shadows expanding and twisting into menacing figures. "Ricky, I can't do this," Cale said with a biting tone. "We're already caught in something perilous. I can't drag Felicity into it." "Right, so let her carry on living her life, blissfully unaware?" Ricky asked, exasperated. "Are you saying you care what happens to her?" "Of course, I care." Cale snapped, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. "She deserves better than this tumult. Does she deserve to know you're the one holding the pieces together for the other side?" Ricky pressed, crossing his arms defiantly. Frustrated, Cale turned away, eyes tracing the path back to the growing festival light. But then he froze, the realization crashing down like a wave. What they were about to do could upend everything. Behind him, Ricky scoffed. "Suit yourself. But at this rate, you'll tear yourself apart trying to save everyone." And just like that, their argument hung in the air like a hot breeze, thick with unresolved tension that pushed against their camaraderie. Cale clenched his fists, the fight against his own destiny, exhilarating yet terrifying. Suddenly, Belial sauntered in, his presence commanding. "You're going to need a wand and a bit more than some swagger to take tonight on alone. What's the plan?" "Chaos, my friend," Ricky cut in, though Cale here seems reluctant to embrace it. Belial raised a brow, surveying Cale with skepticism. "You're not turning into one of those mushy hearts, are you? Soft spots in battles make for bad soldiers." As they all stood there, trying to reckon with the stakes, Felicity's laughter echoed faintly across the water, a warm, romantic sound laced with the chaos of the evening. Cale felt his heart twist painfully. They were not just preparing for a battle in their lives. They were gearing up for a fight against the very essence of their being. "Guess it's fight or flight, then," he murmured, the words barely leaving his lips, swallowed by the richness of the swamp night. "Let's make it a fight that counts." Ricky smirked, but in his heart, Cale silently vowed, no more secrets, no more lies. Tonight, everything changes. Scene 49, Rituals and Revelations. The air hummed with anticipation as the sun dipped low over the cypress trees, casting shafts of golden light like the fingers of a gentle giant. The chatter of the swamp locals mingled with the soft croaking of frogs, creating a symphony of life that celebrated their home. Cale Omari stood at the edge of the gathering, his brow furrowed. The vibrant colors of the surrounding flora seemed to pulse with the energy of something deeper, something primal, as if the land itself were urging its people to remember. "Cale, you're going to let all the fun pass you by?" Felicity Duval called out, her voice bright amid the din. She waved an arm, conjuring attention like a magician coaxing an audience. Her hair, wild and untamed, caught the light, framing her face in a halo of warmth. Shaking off his dark thoughts, Cale stepped forward, joining the growing crowd. Around him, the locals stood in a haphazard circle, armed with sage bundles and earthen pots. The ritual to honor their beloved swamp was about to begin. "First step," grinned Henrietta, a spirited elder, twirling her colorful shawl like a dancer. "We need to raise the spirits." Her infectious laughter spread, drawing smiles from even the most stoic faces. "Bring the herbs and the good vibes, y'all." Laughter erupted as a young boy, Nigel, charged forward with a bundle of herbs, mischief written all over his face. "You got the wiggly ones?" he interrupted, holding out his hand for excitedly delivered response. "Those ain't for the likes of you, young man," Henrietta chided playfully, tapping his nose with a finger. "They go to the ancient spirits, not mischievous little goblins." The boy erupted into giggles, keeping the spirit light. While the joyful chaos unfolded, Cale shifted his gaze to Felicity, her spirit seemingly illuminated from within. The way her eyes sparkled with fervor reminded him of the sacred duty that bound him, the pact he had made, drawing unbidden shadows even in these moments of levity. He didn't have time to dwell. Henrietta clapped her hands and called for silence. "Gather round, dear ones. Time to share tales of our great-grandmothers and the way they tamed these waters." As the crowd settled, whispers of ancestral stories woven with laughter and sorrow intertwined like the roots of the cypress trees. Pockets of small groups exchanged snippets, microdramas emerging everywhere as old rivalries and alliances simmered just beneath the surface. Yet in that moment, Cale felt the pressure of his own history bearing down. He turned to Felicity, who had drifted beside him, catching the slight curve of her lips in a thoughtful smile. "What makes you come back here?" she asked, sidestepping the immediate ritual, her voice low yet piercing through the ambient noise. He hesitated, caught between revealing his turmoil or maintaining his facade. "You find adventure," he said, casting a glance outside the circle, even among the mundane. Laughter erupted from behind them, where two elders mock fought with improvised staffs made from broomsticks. Felicity laughed, her eyes catching in Cale's, reflective pools of the swamp's heart. "The swamp is anything but mundane, Cale. Look around. You can almost hear the spirits chuckling." As if in response, a sudden gust of wind rustled through, coiling the energy around them, catching Felicity's shawl, dancing in vibrant colors. "See?" she grinned, the energy between them crackling like static in the air. But before Cale could reply, nearby, Melanie, the town gossip, leaned in towards her friend Clara, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. Did you see how Felicity looked at Kale? It's practically written in the stars, and I don't mean those swampy ones. Clara snorted, rolling her eyes. Please, Melanie, if those two are a thing, I'll eat my hat. He's got more secrets than the swamp has mud. The laughter echoed around them, and Kale caught Felicity's gaze again, both caught in the fray of a community each battling its own secrets and aspirations. As Henrietta began calling for the stories to resume, Felicity squared her shoulders, a determined sparkle lighting up her eyes. Let's show them real adventure, Kale. Let's remind them how to dream loud enough they can't ignore us. The air soon hung heavy with rhythm and laughter, while Kale felt the pull of rebellion stir within him. Perhaps tonight would be the night the shackles of his fate began to tremble. The swamp sang its enchanting song, and with each word, each shout of joy, Kale found himself answering softly, with a private affirmation that echoed in the depths of his heart. All right then, he said slowly, a smile creeping onto his face. Where do we start? Scene 50. Spiritual Realizations. The air was thick with the earthy scent of damp moss and decaying leaves as Felicity Duval made her way through the twisting trails of the swamp. Her breath quickened, tracing the shaky path to a small, unassuming wooden hut nestled between overgrown roots like a secret waiting to be uncovered. She clenched her jaw, steadying her thoughts against the torrential tide of uncertainty. Inside, an elder named Mora sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by intricately woven baskets filled with dried herbs and ancient trinkets. The dim light flickered as the dutiful flames of a single candle bathed the room in a soft glow, illuminating the lines etched deeply across Mora's weathered face. "You're here for a reason, child," Mora said, her voice a melodic line threading through the room, urging Jolene to step closer. "I can feel the weight of your ancestors upon you." Felicity hesitated, her fingers brushing the coarse surface of a battered journal resting nearby. She stepped in, dropping her guard. "It's just," she paused, the words stumbling over one another. "I always feel caught between dreams and obligations. My family relied on the airboat tours, but now—" Mara nodded knowingly, her gaze piercing through Felicity's facade, encouraging more than just a verbal response. "The air you breathe is filled with their hopes. You carry their burdens, but it is vital to remember that they soared above challenges just like you must." Felicity's brows furrowed, contemplating. They struggled, they lost. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail? The elder leaned forward, her hands resting on her knees, intent and immediate. Strength isn't always about overcoming, it is simply being. Each step you take in this swamp is already a tribute to their spirit. You must confront your feelings of inadequacy, harness them rather than let them define you. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Kale Omari, his presence a pulse of electric energy, burst into the room. He had spent the day wrangling with the mischief that lingered in the swamp, the ever-looming specter of his dark secret, a compact he couldn't shake. Felicity's heart quickened at the glimpse of him, a rush of warmth battling with the turmoil that always simmered between them. "Am I intruding?" he asked, although his voice didn't carry the weight of guilt one might expect. Instead, it danced on the edge of mischief, an invitation that coaxed laughter from the heavy tension. "No," Felicity said, a smirk pulling at her lips despite herself. "You found the secret meeting for the swamp's procrastinators." Kale grinned, though there was a fleeting shadow in his eyes. "My kind of club. Can I join? I have plenty of failures I'd love to conveniently blame on the swamp." "You're welcome, as long as you bring snacks," Mora chimed in gravely, her white hair glowing like a halo in the candlelight. "If you think we can drown our woes in food, you are mistaken. This is a sacred space for revelations." Kale's grin transformed to genuine interest as he leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the playful facade momentarily dropping away. "Revelations? I'm in. What's the topic of the day?" Felicity shifted her gaze from Kale to Mora. The elder's eyes twinkled with youthful mischief as she raised her chin. "We're discussing the lineage of dreams. It seems these two are tangled in whispers that speak of burdens yet to be lifted." "Sounds ominous," Kale said, straightening as he sensed the change in the room's atmosphere, the weight of legacy settling over him. "Dreams can't die, Kale, only become dormant," Felicity interjected, emboldened by Kale's proximity. but it takes an awakening to breathe new life into them. They shared a moment, a spark igniting between them, a connection that transcended words. The air thickened, holding their gaze captive, a silent admission hanging on the edge of possibility. Kale finally broke the spell, leaning closer. Maybe it's time we both awakened, Felicity. What do you say? Perhaps, Felicity breathed, the pulse of anticipation threading through her veins. But transformations often come with their own set of complications. What's a little complication between friends? Kale's eyes gleamed with that familiar mischief. But there was something deeper, a promise etched in his gaze. As Felicity held his gaze, the flames flickered past shadows and uncertainties, revealing a burning truth beneath the surface. The complexity of their paths intertwined, promising ties bound in both legacy and longing. Mora, sensing the charged energy, smiled knowingly. You're both more connected than you realize. Listen to the swamp, it speaks to the heart. Outside, the incessant croaking of frogs echoed like distant laughter, the swamp living, breathing, and ready to reveal the truths only the brave dared to confront. Scene 51, confrontation with Ricky. The thick, humid air clung to Jolene's skin as she stood before the rickety old shack, its weathered wood looking more defiant than she felt. The soggy swamp floor squelched beneath her boot as she turned to Belial, whose shadow loomed large against the backdrop of moss-draped cypress trees. What if he doesn't listen? Jolene's voice wavered, not from fear, but from the weight of the uncertainty that clung to her like the swamp steam. Belial's jaw tightened, each muscle working against the impatience within. Ricky isn't the type to back down, Jolene, but you've got to stand your ground. This is about more than just a petty thief. He paused, his brows knitting together. It's about taking back what's ours. Jolene drew in a sharp breath, feeling the fire of determination swirl within. And about reclaiming my family's name. I won't let him tarnish it any longer. As they stepped onto the porch, the rickety boards creaked beneath them, echoing the apprehension that crackled in the air. Jolene's heart thumped louder than the sound of her boots, the memory of all the looks from hesitant tourists weighing heavily on her. Inside, the dim light revealed the telltale clutter of Ricky's operation stacks of bottled swamp essence, poorly labeled and haphazardly organized, lined the tables. Ricky himself leaned back in an old chair, feet on a dusty workbench, craftily nonchalant. What brings the duo of misfit swamp rats to my humble abode? Ricky's voice oozed mockery, his fingers tapping idly against the chair's arm as he smirked. Enough games, Ricky, Jolene said, stepping forward with surprising boldness. You've been selling knockoff tours and lying to tourists about their safety. You have no right. Since when did you get so high and mighty, Jolene? Ricky cut in, an exaggerated scoff escaping his lips. Your airboat tours are in ruins. Did I take them? No. You did that all by your lonesome. Not my fault if your family's legacy is going under. Belial shifted to stand protectively beside Jolene, his eyes narrowing. Why is it always about tearing others down? You can make something of yourself without ruining others, Ricky. Please, Ricky said with a dismissive wave. You think I'm scared of you two? You're nothing but whispering dreams and broken promises. He stood up, towering over them, an unsettling grin peeling back his discomfort. Always hiding behind that pretty little face of yours, Jolene. Jolene flinched slightly at the jab, but steadied herself, aware of Belial's simmering anger beside her. The tension was thick, almost visible, hanging around them like the heavy fog that enshrined the swamp. With newfound fierceness, she snapped back. This isn't over just because you say it is. We're coming for what's ours. Cute, Ricky replied, but the bravado dripped. His eyes darted momentarily to the cluttered tables, a hint of uncertainty flickering. You think people are going to race back to your sinking ship? I'll give it 2 weeks before the swamp swallows you whole. No, Belial said, stepping forward, narrowing the gap. You're going to stop this. You're going to face the consequences. Despite his threat, his voice was almost casual, imbued with a strange sense of camaraderie. What harm can a swamp ghost do? Ricky mocked, but beneath the bravado, he glanced back toward the stacks of twisted bottles, a twitch in his hand. There was a hint of fear lurking beneath his bravado. Jolene noticed and pressed. You may own this swampland in name, but it doesn't mean it's yours to exploit. Your power ends here, Ricky. The silence hummed between them, broken only by the distant croak of frogs. Ricky's smirk faltered, revealing cracks in his bravado. With a flick of his wrist, he launched a bottle at the wall, where it shattered, shards glinting dangerously in the low light. "Enough," he snarled, the cowardice seeping through the bravado. "You think you can scare me? I own this swamp. You're nothing but whispers." "You must be very insecure if you think a bottle is your shield," Belial retorted, his voice low, almost soothing as he settled beside Jolene. "It's only a matter of time before the truth catches up to you." "There's a whole world out here, Ricky," Jolene added, her voice firm and clear, "and we plan to take it all back." Ricky stood frozen for a moment, a flicker of apprehension crossing his features. "You can't just walk in here and threaten me." With a swift motion, Jolene stepped closer, glancing sideways at Belial, feeling the warmth of his presence steady her. "We're not just walking in, Ricky. We're here to call you out." In that instant, the tension coiled like a spring ready to snap. Ricky's facade began to crumble as he blinked rapidly, eyes wide in reluctant understanding. The air hung heavy, thick with promise and confrontation, like the stillness before summer rain. Belial shot Jolene a brief but significant glance, and in that shared moment, they both understood the depth of their fight, both for the swamp and for their hearts. "Now you'll have to reckon with the truth," Belial murmured, shifting his stance, a hint of challenge glowing in his eyes. And just like that, the battle had turned, no longer simply about airboat tours, but about confronting the very essence of who they were. Scene 52. The underworld stirs. The air was dense and laden with humidity, a thick veil that stifled the spaces between thoughts. Cale stood at the edge of a muddy bank, watching the murky water ripple and churn with every breath of wind. Shadows danced ominously among the cypress trees, their gnarled fingers creeping closer under the waning light. The dull throb of a distant storm seemed to echo the turmoil within him, pulling memories from the seabed of his mind rivalry, loss, a pact sealed in the darkness of the swamp.